Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we cut through the noise, sift through the most important information, and deliver the core insights directly to you so you can become instantly well-informed. Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're plunging into a topic that feels like science fiction but is rapidly becoming a very real, very urgent challenge. The inescapable collision of quantum computing and information security. And this isn't just theoretical, is it? It's really about securing our digital lives, our privacy, and even national defense right now and for decades to come.
That's exactly right. Today, we're taking a deep dive into how quantum computing is poised to fundamentally reshape information security. Our mission for you, our listener, is clear. We want to equip you with the essential insights from some of the most foundational and practical sources in the field. Our goal isn't just to tell you what is happening, but really why it matters to you. Whether you're prepping for a crucial meeting, maybe trying to catch up on a new cutting-edge field, or, simply insanely curious about the future of technology and security.
Yeah, absolutely. And to guide us on this deep dive, we've synthesized crucial insights from, well, a truly comprehensive stack of sources. We've got the Bible of quantum computing itself, Nielsen and Chuang, which really gives us those foundational principles. Then we have the practical wisdom from Daniel Rogers' Cryptography Apocalypse, offering a crucial perspective on actually preparing for this shift. We've also pulled from Yanofsky and Minucci's Quantum Computing for Computer Scientists, giving us that essential, pragmatic computer scientist's viewpoint. Really useful. And for a forward-looking view, we're leveraging Nirbhay Kumar Shabi's Quantum Cryptography alongside Lars Jaeger's incredibly accessible Second Quantum Revolution. So together, these sources provide a comprehensive, rigorous, yet I think remarkably accessible look at this truly game-changing field. Hashtag the quantum threat, what's happening in the digital shadows. So let's start at the very beginning. When we talk about quantum computing, we're definitely not just talking about a faster version of the classical computers sitting on our desks or, in data centers, are we? What fundamentally sets them apart? What makes them so different from the silicon chips we've relied on for decades?
That's an excellent question, and it's the absolute core of understanding this entire field. What fundamentally sets quantum computing apart from classical computing lies in its use of, well, quantum mechanical phenomena. The first core concept you absolutely have to grasp is the qubit. Unlike classical bits, which can only be a 0 or a 1 at any given moment, think of it like an on or off switch, right? A qubit can exist in a superposition of states. This means it can be 0, 1, or, and this is the crucial part, both simultaneously.
Wait, both simultaneously? How does that even work in practical terms? Can you give us an analogy for that? Because that's kind of hard to picture.
Right, absolutely. The best analogy, and you hear this one a lot because it works pretty well, is that of a spinning coin. While it's in the air, spinning rapidly, it's neither heads nor tails, right? It embodies the possibility of both. It's only when you observe it when it lands, when you measure it, that it collapses into a definite state, either heads or tails. A qubit behaves similarly. It exists in this probabilistic blend of 0 and 1 until it's measured. Now, this ability to exist in multiple states at once is incredibly powerful. It allows quantum computers to perform parallel computations on a massive scale, evaluating numerous possibilities simultaneously, rather than processing them one by one like a classical computer has to. So the crucial insight here is that qubits allow for a fundamentally different way of processing information, one that unlocks computational power far beyond classical limits, but importantly, only for certain types of problems.
Right, okay. That makes sense with the coin analogy. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, and frankly, a bit mind-bending for some people. The concept Einstein famously called spooky action at a distance. That phrase hints at something truly bizarre. What exactly is entanglement?
Indeed, spooky action at a distance is a perfect way to describe entanglement, and it's perhaps the most counterintuitive part of quantum mechanics. It really does seem spooky. Entanglement is this profound correlation between qubits. The state of one qubit can instantly determine the state of another, no matter how far apart they are. It's as if they're linked by an invisible, instantaneous thread. Their fates are intertwined.
So let me get this straight. If I have two entangled qubits and I measure one right here, you instantly know the state of the other one, even if it's on the moon, without any signal traveling between them.
Precisely. It sounds impossible classically, but that's how it works. Imagine you have two entangled coins, like a matched pair. If one lands on heads, you instantly know the other, no matter how far away it is, must also be heads, without even looking at it. Their fates are linked. This immediate correlation, which totally defies classical intuition, is fundamental to many quantum phenomena. And it's absolutely critical for enabling unique quantum security protocols, as we'll definitely discuss later. It's not just a curiosity. It's a resource you can actually leverage.
It's truly incredible stuff, really challenges how you think about reality. And then we have the active measurement itself, which you mentioned earlier with the spinning coin analogy. Observing a qubit collapses its state, right?
Yeah.
And even more fascinating, the no cloning theorem, this idea that you simply cannot copy an unknown quantum state perfectly. Why are these two properties so foundational when we think about building quantum security solutions?
They are absolutely foundational. They're the bedrock, really, because they underpin the very possibility of quantum secure communication. Let's take quantum measurement first. When you interact with a qubit to determine its state, to measure it, you inevitably change it. You force it to collapse from its superposition of possibilities into a definite 0 or 1. This is totally unlike reading a classical bit, which you can do over and over without changing its value. So what that boils down to is that any attempt by an unauthorized party, an eavesdropper, let's call her Eve, to listen in on a quantum communication channel will inherently disturb the quantum states being transmitted. This disturbance introduces errors that the legitimate parties can detect. It essentially announces the eavesdropper's presence. It's like trying to peek at a secret message written in disappearing ink. The active peeking makes it disappear, or at least smudge noticeably.
Ah, okay. So the act of spying reveals the spy.
Exactly. And then there's the no-cloning theorem, which is elegantly simple yet profoundly powerful. It rigorously proves that it's fundamentally impossible to create an identical copy of an arbitrary, unknown quantum state. This is completely different from classical information, which we copy all the time, perfectly, endlessly. Think about copying a file on your computer. For quantum security, this theorem is paramount. It directly prevents an adversary from passively intercepting and copying sensitive quantum information without being detected. If Eve tries to copy the qubit Alice sends to Bob, she either fails or the process introduces changes that reveal her activity. So these two principles, measurement-induced disturbance and the impossibility of perfectly copying unknown quantum information, are the absolute bedrock upon which truly quantum-safe security protocols are built. They offer a level of security assurance that classical cryptography simply can't match because it's rooted in the fundamental laws of physics.
Okay, so these, well, frankly, mind-bending quantum properties aren't just for theoretical physicists tinkering in labs anymore. They're not just academic curiosities. They enable specific algorithms that, let's be honest, pose a direct, almost existential threat to our current digital security infrastructure. We're talking about impacting everything from your online banking and shopping to national defense secrets to the control systems for critical infrastructure. This is where it gets very, very real.
Precisely. The theoretical underpinnings we just discussed become profoundly practical, and yes, profoundly threatening, through the lens of specific quantum algorithms. The first major alarm bell, the one that really woke everyone up, is Shor's algorithm. Its primary target is public key cryptography. This includes the systems that form the backbone of trust on the internet. We're talking RSA, which you'll find securing almost every website you visit via HTTPS, that little padlock icon. It's also used for protecting your online banking login, validating digital signatures, and so much more. Shor also targets Diffie-Hellman key exchange and elliptic curve cryptography, or ECC, which are widely used for setting up secure keys and VPNs, secure messaging apps, and many other secure communication protocols. Essentially, these systems underpin the vast majority of our secure digital interactions today.
Wow. So it's targeting the very foundation of almost all our online trust. How does it actually work its magic? Without getting too deep into the weeds of the quantum Fourier transform, how does it achieve this?
That's a great question. The core mechanism by which Shor's algorithm operates is its incredible ability to efficiently solve two specific mathematical problems that are considered extremely hard, practically impossible for classical computers. These are integer factorization and the discrete logarithm problem. Classical computers take an exponential amount of time to solve these. What that means is, as the numbers involved get bigger, the time required explodes, very quickly becoming longer than the age of the universe. Shor's algorithm, however, leveraging quantum superposition and interference, solves them in polynomial time. This is a game changer. It means the time it takes grows much, much more slowly as the input size increases. At its heart, it uses quantum mechanics to find repeating patterns or periods in numerical sequences incredibly quickly. And finding that period is the key mathematical step needed to factor large numbers or solve the discrete log problem.
Okay, polynomial versus exponential time. That sounds like a huge difference. What's the actual impact then?
The impact is staggering, utterly transformative. For instance, a sufficiently powerful quantum computer, and estimates vary, but maybe around 10,000 stable logical qubits, which is still a ways off, but potentially achievable, could break a commonly used 2048-bit RSA key in mere hours.
Hours.
Compared to
Quickly,
the millions of years it would take the most powerful classical supercomputer we have today, or even imaginable classical computers, to achieve the same feat. This isn't just a speed up. It's a fundamental collapse of the security assumption underlying our entire digital trust infrastructure. It shifts the problem from practically impossible to alarmingly feasible once the hardware exists.
Can you give a simple example? Maybe not with 2048 bits, obviously.
Sure. Imagine you have a very large lock, and its key is made by multiplying two huge prime numbers together. That product is the public key. The two primes are the secret. A classical computer trying to break it would essentially have to try dividing that huge product by countless possible prime numbers, one after another, a brute force guessing game. Shor's algorithm, using quantum properties, can find those two prime factors incredibly quickly. It could factor a small number like n15 into 3 times 5 almost instantly, or n21 into 3 times 7. Now, while these are tiny examples, the principle scales up to the massive numbers used in modern encryption. It essentially provides a universal skeleton key for cracking these widely used public key systems. It's like having a master key for a huge chunk of the digital world's locks. So that's Shor's. The second major alarm is Grover's algorithm. Now, while Shor's targets asymmetric cryptography, those public key systems, Grover's is a threat to a different class: symmetric cryptography and hash functions.
Okay, symmetric crypto, like AES. The stuff we use to encrypt files on our hard drives or for secure connections once the keys are exchanged.
Yes, exactly. Its primary target includes widely used symmetric encryption standards like AES, Advanced Encryption Standard, which protects enormous amounts of data from your encrypted hard drive to secure messaging traffic. It also targets hash functions like SHA, secure hash algorithm, which are absolutely crucial for things like digital signatures, ensuring data integrity, password storage, and very relevantly today, blockchain technology. AES is the workhorse for encrypting bulk data quickly once a secret key is shared.
So if AES is used for things like securing my Wi-Fi connection or my company's VPN traffic, how does Grover's algorithm specifically threaten that? Is it a complete break, like Shor seems to be for RSA?
It's not a complete break in the same dramatic way as Shor's, no, but it's still a significant weakening, make no mistake. The mechanism of Grover's algorithm is that it provides a quadratic speedup for unstructured search problems. Let me break that down. If you're searching through a large unordered list or database of n items looking for one specific item, a classical computer would, on average, need to check about half of them, n2 items, to find what it's looking for. Grover's algorithm, using clever quantum tricks like amplitude amplification, can find the marked item in roughly the square root of n operations, so ON. It essentially amplifies the probability of measuring the correct answer with each step, allowing the quantum computer to guess much more efficiently.
Okay, quadratic speedup, square root of n. What's the practical impact on cryptography then?
The impact is that it effectively halves the effective key strength of symmetric systems against a brute force key search. So take a 128-bit AES key. That's currently considered very robustly secure. Trying all 2120 possibilities is computationally infeasible today. However, against an adversary using Grover's algorithm, that 128-bit key effectively provides only the security equivalent of a 64-bit key, since 1 in 128 equals 264. And 64-bit security is definitely not enough to withstand brute force attacks in the quantum era. This necessitates a transition to longer keys, like 256-bit AES, to maintain an equivalent level of security, 2 in 256, 2128, getting us back to that safe 128-bit security level. Think of it like this. If a combination lock requires 128 turns, Grover's effectively makes it require only 64 turns, making it far easier to crack by trying possibilities. Furthermore, it weakens the preimage resistance of hash functions. Preimage resistance means it should be hard to find an input that produces a specific hash output. Grover's speeds this up, which has significant implications for systems like blockchain, which rely heavily on the integrity of these hash functions for things like transaction validation and securing digital currencies. Finding hash collisions also becomes easier.
Can you give a quick example here too?
Sure. Imagine trying to find a specific marked key on a giant key ring containing, say, 1 million keys and $1 million. Classically, you might have to try up to 500,000 keys on average. Grover's algorithm could theoretically find it in about 1,000 operations, the square root of a million. Or, even simpler, if you have a tiny digital database with just 4 items and 4, Grover's algorithm could find a marked item in just 1 query, much faster than a classical search, which would take, on average, 2 queries. So this quadratic speedup, while definitely less catastrophic than Shor's exponential advantage against public key crypto, still demands a significant upgrade to our existing symmetric cryptographic standards and hash functions to maintain robust security in the long run. Doubling key lengths is the generally recommended mitigation. Hashtag tag 1.3, the harvest now, decrypt later. Imperative.
Okay, so we have these two powerful algorithms, Shor's and Grover's, looming. What does this all mean for the data we're encrypting today, right now? Is it safe? Or is there like a ticking clock we should be acutely aware of even before these really powerful quantum computers are fully built and operational? This feels like something out of a spy thriller.
It absolutely is. And it's a chilling yet incredibly important concept that we need to grasp fully. Harvest now, decrypt later. Or sometimes called store now, decrypt later. This isn't some theoretical future risk. It's a critical imperative for right now, today. What it means is that malicious actors, particularly well-resourced nation-states or sophisticated criminal organizations, are almost certainly already collecting vast amounts of encrypted data flowing across the internet today. They're siphoning it up, storing it quietly and patiently in massive data centers with the explicit intention of decrypting it years, maybe decades from now, when sufficiently powerful, fault-tolerant quantum computers become available and Shor's algorithm can be run at scale.
So they're basically building up these huge digital vaults filled with today's encrypted secrets, knowing that eventually they'll have the quantum master key to crack open every single lock inside. That's a truly insidious long-term threat.
Precisely. And this concept absolutely underscores why we need to act now, why organizations and governments need to be migrating to quantum-resistant solutions immediately, even if large-scale, fault-tolerant quantum computers capable of breaking RSA 2048 are still, say, 5, 10, or maybe even 15 years away from being fully operational. The reason is brutally simple. Sensitive data often has a very long shelf life. Think about it. Your personal medical records, which contain deeply private information, ideally need to remain confidential for decades, potentially your entire lifetime. Financial transactions, valuable intellectual property like patented designs or secret formulas, government secrets related to national security or long-term diplomatic strategies, all of these types of data often require confidentiality for 20, 30, even 50 years or more.
Right. Data doesn't just expire after a year or two.
Exactly. So, if this long-lived sensitive data, which you are encrypting and transmitting today, using correct cryptographic standards like RSA or ECC, is harvested by an adversary, it could be fully compromised and decrypted years from now when quantum computers mature. This fundamentally undermines its long-term security. The confidentiality and integrity you assume for your data today, whether it's personal health information, corporate trade secrets, or critical national infrastructure communications, could be completely eroded by this future decryption capability. The crucial insight here, the imperative, is that the time to start protecting against future quantum decryption is now, not when the first headlines announce a successful large-scale Shor's attack. It's about securing tomorrow's secrets with today's proactive migration to quantum-safe cryptography. It raises that urgent question. Are we preparing for tomorrow's threat today, or are we ignoring a ticking time bomb full of our most valuable secrets? The answer, clearly, must be proactive preparation. Hashtag tag quantum defenses, building the walls of tomorrow.
Okay, so with these profound threats looming, or rather already lurking in the digital shadows with this harvest now, decrypt later strategy, where do we turn for solutions? It sounds like we need entirely new defensive paradigms. One approach, which ingeniously leverages the very quantum mechanics that create the threat, is quantum key distribution, or QKD.
Absolutely. Quantum key distribution, or QKD, offers a truly compelling promise, almost a holy grail. Theoretically unbreakable security for the process of key exchange. It achieves this by directly leveraging those fundamental principles of quantum mechanics we discussed earlier, specifically the observer effect, measurement disturbs the system, and the no-cloning theorem, to detect any eavesdropping attempt on the key exchange process itself. This makes QKD inherently immune to future quantum attacks, or indeed any attack based on computational power, because its security isn't based on mathematical hardness, but on the laws of physics. The moment an eavesdropper tries to intercept the quantum channel used for key distribution, they inevitably disturb the delicate quantum states, and that disturbance is immediately detectable by the legitimate parties, Alice and Bob. It's like trying to listen to a whispered conversation, where the very act of leaning in creates a loud noise that alerts the speakers.
Fascinating. How does it work in practice? You mentioned protocols earlier.
Right. One of the most foundational and widely understood QKD protocols is the BB84 protocol, developed way back in 1984 by Charles Bennett and Gilles Broussard. Here's the gist of how it generally works. Alice wants to establish a secret key with Bob. She doesn't send the key itself directly. Instead, she sends a stream of individual photons to Bob. For each photon, she randomly encodes a potential key bit, 0 or 1, by polarizing the photon in one of two randomly chosen bases, or orientations. Think of these bases like different ways of measuring polarization. For example, the rectilinear basis, measuring horizontal versus vertical polarization, let's say 0 degrees versus 90 degrees, or the diagonal basis, measuring 45 degrees versus 135 degrees polarization. Now, Bob, on the receiving end, doesn't know which basis Alice used for each photon. So for each incoming photon, he also randomly chooses one of the same two bases, rectilinear or diagonal, to measure its polarization. Later, after the quantum transmission is complete, Alice and Bob communicate over a classical, public channel, like a regular phone line or internet connection that doesn't need to be secret. They don't reveal the actual key bits they measured, but they tell each other which basis they used for each photon measurement. They then discard any results where they happen to choose different bases. Why? Because if they use different bases, Bob's measurement result is essentially random relative to Alice's intended bit. But crucially, for all the photons where they did happen to choose the same basis, Bob's measurement outcome should perfectly match the bit Alice sent, assuming no errors or eavesdropping. This subset of matching results forms their shared, identical, and secret key.
Okay, so they use the quantum channel to send potential key bits, and the classical channel to sift out the usable ones based on matching measurement choices. But how does the eavesdropping detection kick in?
That's the elegant part. The genius of BB84 lies in its built-in eavesdropping detection. Let's bring back our eavesdropper, Eve. If Eve tries to intercept and measure a photon en route from Alice to Bob, she too is forced to choose a measurement basis, just like Bob. Since she doesn't know Alice's basis choice, that's random, Eve will inevitably guess the wrong basis for some of the photons. When she measures with the wrong basis, she collapses the photon's quantum state, but potentially into a state different from the one Alice originally sent. Then, when Eve retransmits a photon to Bob, maybe trying to cover her tracks, this altered state might cause Bob to get a different result even when he and Alice use the same basis. So after Alice and Bob have compared bases and established their potential key, they sacrifice a small portion of that key. They publicly compare the values of these sacrifice bits over the classical channel. If there are more errors than expected just from natural noise in the system, they know someone Eve was listening in. For example, if Eve randomly guesses the basis for each photon, statistical analysis shows she would introduce a detectable error rate of about 25% in the sifted key bits where Alice and Bob use the same basis. If they detect such errors, they discard the entire key and try again. The crucial insight, again, is that this security fundamentally relies on the no-cloning theorem. Eve cannot perfectly copy the unknown quantum states Alice sends to measure them later without disturbing them. Any attempt to intercept and measure will inevitably alter the original state, leaving an indelible trace that alerts Alice and Bob. And just quickly, beyond BB84, there's also the E91 protocol developed by Arthur Eckert in 1991. This takes a slightly different approach using entanglement. Instead of Alice sending individual photons, a source creates pairs of entangled photons. One photon from each pair goes to Alice, the other to Bob. Because they're entangled, their properties are perfectly correlated. Alice and Bob then randomly choose measurement settings for their respective photons. They later compare settings classically. The correlations they observe in their results can be used to generate a shared key. Crucially, the strength of these correlations can be checked against fundamental limits predicted by quantum mechanics, known as Bell's inequalities. If an eavesdropper tries to interfere with the entangled pair, it will weaken these correlations in a way that violates Bell's inequalities, thus revealing the eavesdropping attempt. While theoretically very robust and offering a different kind of security proof tied directly to non-locality, E91 is generally more experimentally complex to implement than BB84, mainly due to the challenges of reliably generating, distributing, and maintaining stable entangled photon pairs over significant distances. So while powerful conceptually, BB84 and its variants tend to be more common starting points for practical QKD systems today.
This all sounds incredibly secure, almost too good to be true, offering unbreakable key exchange based on physics itself, a real holy grail for cryptography. But, as with most things that sound too good to be true in the real world, I imagine there are practical considerations and limitations for implementing QKD on a wide scale. What are those hurdles? What prevents it from being everywhere already, securing all our communications?
You're absolutely right to be skeptical of too good to be true. While the theoretical promise of QKD is immense, the practical reality comes with significant challenges and limitations that currently restrict its widespread deployment. Firstly, there are high costs. QKD requires highly specialized, incredibly sensitive, and yes, very expensive hardware. We're talking about things like single photon sources, which need to emit photons precisely one at a time, and single photon detectors that can register these minuscule light particles with extremely high efficiency and low noise, often requiring cryogenic cooling. Estimates for a commercial QKD system for a point-to-point link can range from around $100,000, maybe a bit less for some research systems, but scaling widespread deployment across a large network could quickly run into the millions or even billions of dollars. This high-cost barrier limits its adoption primarily to extremely high-stakes sectors, where the value of the secure data absolutely justifies this significant investment. Think government intelligence agencies, military command links, or major financial institutions securing massive transactions.
Okay, so cost is a big one. What else?
Secondly, there are significant distance limitations, especially for fiber optic-based QKD, which is the most common approach for terrestrial networks. Photons, the carriers of quantum information in QKD, are surprisingly fragile. They are susceptible to being absorbed or scattered as they travel through optical fibers. Even in the best, clearest fiber available today, a photon has a non-negligible chance of being lost over distance. This exponential photon loss restricts practical fiber optic QKD links to roughly 100 to 200 kilometers, maybe a bit more in lab settings, before the signal becomes too weak to reliably generate a key at a useful rate. To overcome this for longer distances, we would theoretically need devices called quantum repeaters. These would act like signal boosters for quantum information, essentially receiving a weakened quantum state, purifying it, and retransmitting it, perhaps using entanglement swapping. However, practical, efficient quantum repeaters are still largely in the experimental research phase. They're not commercially available for building continent-spanning QKD networks yet. As a temporary workaround for extending the range now, networks can use what are called trusted nodes. This means you set up shorter QKD links between intermediate points, the trusted nodes. At each node, the secret key is received, decrypted classically, then re-encrypted using QKD for the next hop. While this extends the range, it introduces classical vulnerabilities at each trusted node. If any single trusted node is compromised, the security of the entire chain is broken at that point. It becomes a chain only as strong as its weakest trusted link, undermining the end-to-end quantum security promise.
Right, so it's not truly end-to-end quantum secure if you have these trusted nodes in the middle. That definitely sounds like a major trade-off.
It is a significant trade-off, yes, a pragmatic solution for now perhaps, but not the ideal end state. Thirdly, despite its theoretical security based on physics, real-world QKD implementations can suffer from physical vulnerabilities. These aren't attacks on quantum mechanics itself, but rather clever attacks that exploit the inevitable imperfections of the real-world hardware used to build the QKD systems. Examples include detector blinding attacks, where an attacker shines bright light into the single photon detectors, effectively controlling or predicting their output, or photon number splitting, PNS attacks, where an attacker exploits the fact that some practical single photon sources might occasionally, accidentally, emit 2 or more photons instead of just 1. The attacker can then siphon off the extra photon without disturbing the one that reaches Bob, gaining information about the key without introducing detectable errors. Now, sophisticated countermeasures do exist to mitigate many of these side-channel attacks, such as decoy state protocols, which involve randomly sending pulses with different average photon numbers, like strong pulses mixed with weak ones, to catch Eve if she's trying the PNS attack. But these examples illustrate that even theoretically unbreakable systems require extremely diligent engineering, rigorous testing, and constant vigilance against side-channel attacks that exploit the physical implementation rather than the underlying quantum principles. Security is often in the implementation details.
So cost, distance, trusted nodes, and hardware vulnerabilities.
Exactly. Given these limitations, QKD is currently best suited for niche applications. It's really ideal for extremely high security point-to-point or small network, short to medium distance communications where the cost and infrastructure complexity are justified by the extreme sensitivity of the data. Think secure links between military bases, sensitive diplomatic communications between an embassy and its home country, or high-value financial data transfers between major banking centers. It's about securing the absolute crown jewels, not necessarily every single email or web browsing session.
But there are real-world uses happening now.
Oh, absolutely. Despite these hurdles, there are remarkable real-world examples that demonstrate QKD's potential and ongoing progress. Switzerland, for instance, has famously used QKD technology to secure communications related to its national elections, ensuring the integrity and confidentiality of sensitive parts of the voting process. And perhaps the most globally impressive demonstration has been China's Misha satellite project. Launched in 2016, the Misha satellite successfully demonstrated intercontinental QKD, achieving secure key exchange over astounding distances of up to 7,600 kilometers by beaming photons through free space between the satellite and ground stations in China and Austria. This groundbreaking work showcases that while fiber optic QKD has terrestrial distance limitations, free space, satellite-based QKD offers a very promising path towards potentially building truly global quantum-secure communication networks in the future, bypassing some of those fiber loss limitations. It's still complex and expensive, but it shows a potential future direction.
Okay, so QKD offers this incredibly powerful, theoretically unbreakable security for specific, high-value, maybe shorter distance applications where the investment in infrastructure makes sense. But for securing the vast majority of our digital world, I mean, everything from your smartphone and your laptop connecting to Wi-Fi to massive cloud services we rely on to the literally millions of websites secured by HTTPS that we interact with every single day, we clearly need something different. We need something scalable, something that can run on the classical computers we already have. This, I gather, is where post-quantum cryptography, or PQC, comes into the picture.
It's exactly right. PQC is the truly scalable countermeasure that's being developed for widespread adoption to protect against the quantum threat. So what PQC is, fundamentally, are new cryptographic algorithms. These algorithms are based on different mathematical principles than today's RSA, ECC, or even AES in some ways, but critically they're designed to run efficiently on classical computers. The computers we have right now, the ones in our phones, laptops, servers, and the ones we'll continue to use for the foreseeable future. The key innovation, the whole point, is that these new algorithms are specifically engineered to be resistant to known quantum attacks. Most importantly, Shor's algorithm for public key replacements and Grover's algorithm, influencing symmetric key lengths and hash functions. They don't rely on quantum mechanics for their own operation. Instead, their security derives from mathematical problems that are believed to be computationally intractable or extremely hard to solve, even for a large-scale, fault-tolerant quantum computer, even one equipped with millions of qubits. We hope these problems are hard for both classical and quantum computers.
Believed to be hard. That sounds slightly less certain than the laws of physics backing QKD.
It is, and that's a crucial distinction. PQC relies on computational hardness assumptions about mathematical problems, whereas QKD's detection capability relies on physics. Confidence in PQC grows as these mathematical problems withstand years of intense scrutiny from mathematicians and cryptographers worldwide, including those trying to find quantum attacks. And this is precisely where the NIST standardization efforts become absolutely critical. The U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, has taken on the monumental, multi-year task of evaluating and selecting a suite of quantum-resistant cryptographic algorithms. They ran an open global competition, inviting submissions from cryptographers everywhere. Teams proposed algorithms, published specifications, provided code, and then everyone tried to break everyone else's submissions, both classically and with theoretical quantum attacks. This rigorous, transparent process is absolutely vital because it aims to build global consensus and ensure interoperability. Without globally accepted standards, every company, every country, might try to invent its own quantum-safe solutions, leading to cryptographic chaos, incompatible systems, and almost certainly hidden security vulnerabilities. NIST finalized its first set of standards for standardization in 2022, specifically selecting Crystal's Kyber for general encryption key establishment and Crystal's Dilithium, Falcon, and Sphinx, plus for digital signatures, marking a major milestone in preparing the world for the quantum transition. And it's really crucial to stress this isn't just a U.S. government effort imposing standards. It has involved intense collaboration and input from researchers and industry experts across the globe. Global cooperation in this standardization process is paramount to ensuring a secure digital future for everyone, because cybersecurity threats, especially quantum ones, certainly don't respect national borders.
Right, that makes sense. A global problem needs a global solution.
Yeah.
So NIST acted as this global referee, trying to pick the strongest, most practical quantum-resistant algorithms from the contenders. What kinds of new mathematical problems are these winning algorithms based on? I imagine it's not just factoring large numbers anymore.
You're right, it's definitely not factoring or discrete logs. Those are the problems. Short breaks. Out of NIST's rigorous evaluation process, several key PQC families and specific examples have emerged as the leading candidates and now standards, each built on different types of mathematical hardness. First, and arguably the most prominent family right now, is lattice-based cryptography. This family underpins the algorithms NIST selected for general use. Crystal's Kyber, which is being standardized for key encapsulation mechanisms, CHEMs, think of it as a quantum-safe replacement for Diffie-Hellman or RSA key exchange, and Crystal's Dilithium, which is one of the primary standards for digital signatures, serving as a quantum-resistant alternative to RSA or ECDSA signatures. The security of lattice-based cryptography is typically based on the presumed hardness of certain problems related to mathematical lattices, which are essentially grids of points in high-dimensional space. A common underlying problem is the learning with errors, or LWE problem. Imagine you have a very complex high-dimensional grid or lattice of points. Someone gives you a point that's close to one of the lattice points, but it's been slightly distorted by adding a small amount of random noise. The challenge is to figure out which original lattice point it's closest to. It turns out this is incredibly hard to do efficiently in high dimensions, even with a quantum computer, if you don't know the secret structure of the lattice or the noise characteristics. That's a simplified intuition for the hardness LWE relies on. It's relatively easy to create these LWE problems, but believed to be very hard to solve them without the secret information. A major advantage of these lattice-based algorithms, particularly Kyber and dilithium, is that they offer a good balance. They achieve strong security levels with relatively compact key sizes, for example. Kyber public keys are around 800 bytes for NIST Level 1 security, which is quite manageable for many internet protocols, and they generally offer good performance, encryption, and decryption speeds, making them suitable for widespread deployment in things like web browsers, servers, and even some constrained devices.
Okay, lattices. Sounds complex but promising. What other types of math are involved?
Next up, we have code-based cryptography. The most historically significant example here is the Mechalese crypto system, which was actually proposed way back in 1978. This makes it one of the oldest and most thoroughly studied PQC candidates. Its security relies on the hardness of decoding general linear error-correcting codes. Error-correcting codes are used all the time in data transmission and storage to detect and fix errors. Mechalese uses specific types, like GOPA codes, where decoding is easy if you know a secret structure, but believed to be very hard if you don't. The main advantage of Mechalese is its known strong security foundation and its remarkably long-standing resistance to cryptanalysis, including quantum attacks. It's withstood decades of intense scrutiny. However, its significant limitation, and the reason it wasn't chosen by NIST for general standardization in the first round, though a variant called Classic Mechalese is still in the running as an alternate, is that it requires dramatically larger key sizes compared to lattices. We're talking public keys that can be around a megabyte or more.
This makes it impractical for many resource-constrained environments like IoT devices or protocols with strict bandwidth limits, although it could still be suitable for more specialized applications like secure long-term archiving, where large keys might be less of an issue.
A megabyte key? Wow, okay, I can see the practicality issue there. What else?
Then there are hash-based signatures. NIST also standardized one hash-based signature scheme called SYNS-S plus A. Other examples historically include XMSS and the foundational Lamport signatures. The security of these schemes relies directly on the properties of classical cryptographic hash functions like Airshay-3 or Blake. Specifically, they rely on the assumption that it's hard for even a quantum computer to find collisions, two inputs hashing to the same output, or pre-images, an input that hashes to a specific output, for a good hash function. Grover's algorithm does offer a quadratic speedup here, which means we need to use hash functions with larger output sizes, but it doesn't fundamentally break the approach like Shor's breaks RSA. A key characteristic and potential limitation for many hash-based signature schemes, especially the simpler ones like Lamport, is that they can be stateful. Some are essentially one-time signatures, meaning a specific private key component can only be used to sign a single message safely. If you reuse it, security collapses catastrophically. Schemes like SYNS Plus are designed to be stateless, or manage the state internally, making them safer to deploy, but this often comes at the cost of larger signature sizes or slower performance compared to something like dilithium. So careful implementation and state management, if required, are crucial.
Stateful signatures. Sounds like something easy to mess up.
It can be, yes. That's why stateless hash-based signatures like SYNS Plus are generally preferred for broader use, though they have their own trade-offs. And finally, just to mention it, there was also multivariate polynomial cryptography. Schemes like Rainbow, which were based on the presumed difficulty of solving systems of multivariate quadratic equations over a finite field, were initially strong contenders in the NIST process. They often offered very small signatures. However, during the evaluation process, significant cryptanalytic attacks were discovered against several multivariate schemes, including Rainbow, which effectively broke them or severely weakened their security claims. This highlights the importance of that open, competitive standardization process. Hidden weaknesses can be uncovered. As a result, multivariate schemes are generally less favored now for general standardization. The research continues.
So it's really a mix of different mathematical approaches, each with strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly. And that brings us to the crucial point about the inherent trade-offs that all these PQC algorithms face. When selecting and deploying them, developers and organizations have to carefully balance several competing factors. Obviously, security strength is paramount, ensuring the underlying mathematical problem is genuinely resistant to the best-known classical and quantum attacks. Then there's performance. How fast can the algorithms encrypt, decrypt, sign, and verify? This impacts user experience and system efficiency. Key size and signature size are critical, especially for bandwidth-constrained networks or memory-limited devices. Smaller is generally better. And finally, computational overhead. How much processing power and memory do they require? These factors are all absolutely critical for widespread deployment. The algorithms need to seamlessly integrate into our existing systems and protocols without causing unacceptable slowdowns or requiring massive increases in bandwidth or storage needs. The algorithms NIST selected, like Kyber and dilithium, represent what they judge to be the best overall compromises among these factors for general-purpose use, aiming for algorithms that are both robustly secure and practical enough for the real world we live in today. But the search for even better PQC solutions is definitely ongoing. Hashtag navigating the quantum shift practical steps and broader impacts.
Okay, so once these PQC standards, like Kyber and dilithium, are finalized and start getting widely adopted, which is a process already underway with libraries and protocols starting to integrate them, what happens next for the digital world we use every day? It really sounds like this isn't just about, updating a single software library. It feels like a pretty significant overhaul of our entire digital infrastructure is required.
It absolutely is a massive undertaking. You could argue it's one of the largest and most critical cryptographic transitions in the history of the internet and computing. The necessity of comprehensive upgrades to our existing digital infrastructure simply cannot be overstated. Think about the core internet protocols that keep us secure online. TLS, Transport Layer Security, which provides the S in HTTPS and ensures your web browsing is private and authenticated. SSH, Secure Shell, which provides secure remote access to servers for system administrators. And IPsec, Internet Protocol Security, the foundation for many virtual private networks, VPNs, that secure corporate and personal connections. All of these foundational protocols, which underpin nearly every secure digital communication we rely on, must integrate these new PQC algorithms to remain secure in the eventual quantum era. It's not just a minor patch, it's a fundamental swap of the cryptographic primitives used for key exchange and digital signatures within these protocols. Every piece of software and hardware that implements or relies on these protocols, web servers, browsers, operating systems, VPN clients, routers, firewalls, will eventually need to be updated or replaced to support PQC.
Wow, that's everything almost. What about other critical technologies?
Exactly. The implications extend far beyond just basic web browsing and VPNs. Consider blockchain and cryptocurrencies. These decentralized systems rely heavily on digital signatures, often ECDSA currently, to authorize transactions and ensure ownership of assets, and on hash functions for linking blocks and ensuring integrity. PQC algorithms, particularly those designed for digital signatures like Crystal's dilithium or Falcon, are absolutely essential to secure these blockchain systems and the trillions of dollars in digital assets they represent against future quantum attacks. Without a transition to quantum-resistant signatures, the foundational security assumptions of most current cryptocurrencies and decentralized ledgers could be completely broken by Shor's algorithm, potentially allowing attackers to forge transactions or steal assets. This is a huge area of active research and development.
All right, losing your crypto keys would be bad enough, but having the whole system security break.
Precisely. And then there's critical infrastructure. Think about sectors like power grids, water treatment plants, air traffic control systems, healthcare systems managing patient data, and sensitive government networks. In these areas, long-term data confidentiality and system integrity are absolutely paramount. Failures can have catastrophic real-world consequences. These sectors will likely need to rely heavily on a combination of quantum-safe solutions. For extremely high stakes, point-to-point communications where the cost is justified, quantum key distribution, QKD, might be used for key exchange. But for the broader general data protection across their vast and complex networks, post-quantum cryptography, PQC, integrated into standard protocols like TLS and IPsec, will be the essential workhorse. Think about the control signals for the entire electrical grid needing to be secure and authenticated for decades, or patient medical data that must remain private for a person's lifetime. And beyond these are the high-stakes scenarios driving the urgency for both QKD and PQC adoption.
So it's not necessarily an either between QKD and PQC.
Not at all. They're often complementary technologies addressing different needs and constraints. The good news is that there are already significant ongoing efforts by major standards bodies and open source projects to facilitate this massive PQC transition. Organizations like the Internet Engineering Task Force, IETF, which develops and promotes the core Internet standards like TLS and IPsec, are actively working on specifying how to integrate algorithms like Crystal's Kyber and Dilithium into these protocols. Similarly, widely used cryptographic software libraries like OpenSSL, Boring SSL, and others are actively adding support for these NIST standardized PQC algorithms. This is a crucial step towards making PQC a practical reality for developers and system administrators across the globe, ensuring they have the tested, standardized tools they need to start making the switch in their applications and systems. The groundwork is being laid, but the actual migration will take years.
This sounds like a truly massive undertaking for any organization, really. Whether you're a small business running an e-commerce website or a huge government agency protecting national secrets, what are the key practical steps they need to be taking right now to prepare for this quantum shift? How do they even begin to tackle something so foundational, especially when, for many, the actual quantum attack might still feel a bit distant or abstract?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you prepare for a threat that hasn't fully materialized, but whose consequences could be devastating? The answer really revolves around adopting a strategic mindset and embracing a crucial concept: crypto-agility. Crypto-agility is, simply put, the ability of an organization's systems and infrastructure to quickly and efficiently swap out cryptographic algorithms and parameters without requiring major system overhauls or causing significant disruptions. This flexibility is going to be absolutely key to navigating the quantum transition successfully. Why? Because quantum technology is still evolving. Our understanding of quantum threats might change, and even the PQC standards themselves might see updates or new additions over time. Organizations need to be able to adapt. It's about building flexibility into your cryptographic infrastructure from the start. Think of it like building your digital house with modular, standardized components, so you can easily upgrade the locks or reinforce the walls as new threats emerge or better defenses become available without having to tear down the whole house and rebuild.
Okay, crypto agility. Makes sense. Be ready to change. But how does an organization achieve that? What are the concrete steps?
To achieve crypto agility and prepare for PQC migration, organizations really need to take several concrete, practical steps, ideally starting yesterday, but definitely starting now. The very first, absolutely essential step is to perform a thorough cryptographic inventory. You simply cannot protect or migrate what you don't know you have. This means cataloging all cryptographic assets across the entire IT infrastructure, applications, systems, network devices, databases, embedded systems, everything. This isn't just about identifying the big encryption systems. It involves pinpointing every instance where cryptography is used, which specific algorithms, RSA, ECC, AES, SHA-2, what key lengths are employed, 1 through 24, bit RSA, 2048, 1 and 28-bit AES, which protocols are using them, TLS 1.2, SSH, a proprietary protocol, and what data they are protecting. This inventory creates that clear, comprehensive map of their cryptographic dependencies and, critically, their potential quantum vulnerabilities. Many organizations are genuinely surprised by how much legacy or poorly documented cryptography they find buried deep within their systems.
So, step one, know thyself, cryptographically speaking. What's next?
Following the inventory, organizations must conduct a comprehensive quantum risk assessment. This involves evaluating which systems and data identified in the inventory are most vulnerable to quantum attacks and pose the greatest risk to the organization if compromised. The priority should naturally be given to systems that handle data requiring long-term confidentiality or integrity again. Think medical records, financial data, government secrets, critical intellectual property, authentication credentials. The harvest now, decrypt later threat makes data with a long security lifespan particularly vulnerable. A risk matrix can be incredibly helpful here, classifying assets based on their confidentiality, integrity, and availability requirements, CIA triad, assessing their current cryptographic protection, and estimating the impact of a quantum compromise. This helps prioritize the migration efforts on the most critical assets first.
Okay, inventory, then risk assessment. Then you need a plan, right?
Exactly. Based on the inventory and risk assessment, organizations need to develop realistic transition strategies and roadmaps. This almost always involves a phased approach to migration, as a big bang switchover is usually too risky and complex. We're typically looking at a short-term phase, maybe the next 1 to 3 years. Focus on achieving crypto agility, identifying critical dependencies, and perhaps beginning to deploy hybrid cryptographic systems in some areas. Hybrid systems combine a classical algorithm, like RSA or ECC, with a PQC algorithm, like Kyber or dilithium, for key exchange of signatures. This provides backward compatibility while introducing quantum resistance early. A medium-term phase, say 3 to 5 years out, began more extensive testing and piloting of NIST standardized PQC algorithms in non-critical systems or internal applications to gain operational experience, understand performance impacts, and iron out implementation issues. And then a long-term phase, perhaps 5, 10 years or more, depending on the organization's complexity. Undertake the full transition, systematically replacing all vulnerable classical cryptography with standardized PQC solutions across the entire infrastructure, based on the priorities identified in the risk assessment. This multi-year roadmap helps manage the complexity and avoids a sudden chaotic scramble when the quantum threat becomes imminent.
Phased approach makes sense. What else is crucial?
Finally, and this is crucially important but often overlooked, is training and awareness. It's absolutely vital to educate everyone involved, IT staff, system administrators, network engineers, software developers, security architects, and even executive leadership and legal teams about the quantum risks, the PQC transition plan, and their role in it. Building this quantum literacy across the organization ensures that everyone understands the urgency and importance of this transition. Developers need to know how to implement the new PQC libraries correctly. Sysadmins need to know how to configure servers. Executives need to allocate budget and resources. If your teams aren't aware or trained, the migration simply won't happen effectively or securely. And just to circle back quickly on those hybrid cryptographic systems I mentioned for the short-term phase, they really are a valuable pragmatic tool. The idea is, for example, when establishing a secure TLS connection, the system would perform both a classical key exchange, like ECDH, and a PQC key exchange, like Kyber. The resulting session key would then depend on secrets derived from both exchanges. This approach provides a crucial safety net. If the classical algorithm is broken by a quantum computer, the PQC algorithm still protects the session. Conversely, if, hypothetically, an unexpected weakness were found in the new PQC algorithm, the classical algorithm would still provide protection against classical attackers. It offers a smoother transition path, ensuring backward compatibility with systems that haven't migrated yet, while immediately bolstering security against future quantum threats. It's a pragmatic bridge to a fully PQC future.
Okay, if we pull back from the organizational level and connect all this to the bigger picture, beyond individual companies or even national infrastructures, what are the broader societal and international implications of this quantum revolution? This really sounds like something that could fundamentally shift global power dynamics, doesn't it?
It absolutely could, and arguably already is starting to. We are undeniably witnessing an intensifying global race for quantum supremacy. Major nations and blocs, particularly the United States, China, and the European Union, but also others like the UK, Canada, Japan, and Russia, are investing massive amounts of resources. We're talking billions upon billions of dollars, euros, and yuan into quantum research and development. This isn't just driven by scientific curiosity or the potential for new computing paradigms. It's increasingly seen as a strategic imperative with profound geopolitical ramifications. Each nation, each bloc, recognizes that achieving a significant lead in quantum technology, both computing and potentially quantum sensing and communication, could provide an unparalleled economic and national security advantage in the coming decades.
So it's almost like a new space race or a new arms race, but fought with qubits and algorithms instead of rockets or traditional weapons, focused on information dominance.
In many ways, yes, that's a very apt comparison. The stark warning here, the potential geopolitical fallout, is that advancements in quantum computing, particularly achieving fault-tolerant machines capable of running Shor's algorithm at scale, could create significant cybersecurity disparities between nations. Imagine a scenario, maybe 10 or 15 years from now, where one nation or a small group of allied nations achieves this Q-Day capability significantly ahead of others. This capability would essentially grant them the power to decrypt vast amounts of currently encrypted communications and store data belonging to adversaries or competitors who are still relying on classical public key cryptography. We're talking government secrets, military intelligence, diplomatic cables, critical industrial intellectual property, everything protected by RSA, ECC, Diffie-Hellman today could potentially be laid bare. This would fundamentally shift the global balance of power, giving a nation with quantum supremacy an unprecedented, potentially destabilizing advantage in intelligence gathering, economic espionage, cyber warfare, and even military strategy. It could essentially render an opponent's secret communications and stored data completely transparent to the quantum-capable actor.
That's a deeply unsettling prospect. A
No.
world divided into the quantum secure and the quantum vulnerable.
It is unsettling, and it underscores the critical need for global collaboration and the establishment of international standards for quantum-safe cryptography. Initiatives like NIST's Post-Quantum Cryptography standardization process are therefore not just technical endeavors. They are, in a sense, diplomatic necessities aimed at preventing such a fractured future. Similarly, efforts like the European Quantum Communication Infrastructure (EuroQCI) initiative, which aims to build secure quantum communication networks across EU member states using technologies like QPD, reflect a push towards collective security. These collaborative efforts, along with open research and information sharing, within reasonable national security bounds, of course, are vital to ensure more equitable access to quantum-safe security solutions for all nations, large and small. The goal should be to prevent a future where digital security becomes an exclusive privilege of the technologically advanced rather than a shared, universal necessity. It's about building a collective defense against a common, inevitable threat, fostering a more secure and stable global digital ecosystem, rather than allowing quantum technology to become yet another destabilizing front for global competition and vulnerability. The more rapidly and universally standardized PQC solutions are adopted, the smaller the window of opportunity for the harvest now, decrypt later strategy becomes, and the less destabilizing the eventual arrival of fault-tolerant quantum computers will be. #outro.
Okay, let's try and unpack this one last time, bringing all these complex spreads together as we wrap up. We started by really digging into the fundamental and, frankly, pretty mind-bending properties of quantum mechanics, things like superposition and entanglement, and understanding how they allow for a completely new, powerful way of computing. We then explored how these properties enable specific, truly game-changing quantum algorithms like Shor's and Grover's, and how these algorithms together pose, well, an almost existential threat to our current digital encryption standards, impacting everything from your personal online banking to critical national defense systems. And, crucially, we underscored the chilling reality of the harvest now, decrypt later threat, which really emphasizes the undeniable urgency for action, not sometime off in the distant future, but starting right now.
Yeah, what's truly fascinating when you step back, isn't it, is how this deeply theoretical physics concepts, once confined to blackboards and laboratories, is now directly impacting our everyday digital security and global strategy. It's quite remarkable. But the flip side, the encouraging part, is that the very principles of quantum mechanics that enable the threat also offer the tools for its counter solution, or at least part of it. We've seen that through two primary defensive approaches. Firstly, quantum key distribution, or QKD, which offers that promise of theoretically unbreakable key exchange for specific high-stakes, maybe niche applications, by cleverly leveraging the laws of physics themselves to detect any eavesdropping attempt. And then, perhaps more broadly applicable, post-quantum cryptography, or PQC. These are the new classical algorithms, backed by those vital global standardization efforts led by NIST, designed specifically to run on the computers we already use today, but engineered mathematically to be resistant to attacks from both classical and future quantum computers.
Absolutely. So after this deep dive, you, our listeners, are now equipped with a much deeper understanding of this critical ongoing shift in the security landscape. The message, as we've heard loud and clear from the sources and our discussion, is really unambiguous. Proactive preparation is essential, embracing crypto agility within organizations so they can adapt quickly as things evolve, and making a concerted, unified commitment to adopting these new quantum-safe standards like PQC are not just optional nice-to-haves anymore. They are, quite simply, imperative steps for securing our collective digital future in an increasingly quantum-powered world.
And maybe just a final provocative thought for you to consider as you process all this. In a world where even our most fundamental assumptions about what constitutes unbreakable security are being actively rewritten by the laws of physics and the advance of technology, how does this profound shift, this transition from classical cryptography to a quantum-safe paradigm, influence your own thinking? How does it change how you think about long-term data privacy, about the digital trust you place in the institutions and services you rely on every day, and indeed, about the shifting global balance of power in the information age? What stands out to you personally as the most surprising or perhaps the most impactful insight from our deep dive today?
Something to definitely mull over. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the quantum future of cybersecurity. We hope you feel more informed, maybe a little more prepared, and certainly more aware of the critical changes unfolding around us.